Well, it's time now for the Friend Zone, where we invite one of our friends, legitimate friends actually, from within this building here at Fox onto the show. And tonight we're joined by Pete Hegseth, who's a Fox News contributor who you can usually find on the couch on Fox and Friends Weekend. I sat next to him many, many times. So Pete went to Princeton. I don't want to out you here on the air. And normally, you know, we'd be calling you on to have you account for some lunacy they were committing at Princeton. But tonight, amazingly, Princeton University and Brown in Providence, Brown University, members of the Ivy League, are the only two schools in that league to have declined to become sanctuary campuses for students here illegally. What is going on?
I don't know what's going on. Sanity is breaking out in Old Nassau at Princeton University. And Brown, of all places, too, which is as radical as it comes in the Ivy League. You've got two college presidents basically making the exact same argument that, guess what? The rule of law of our country still applies inside the academic bubble. And so they may have safe spaces and trigger warnings and all the nonsense that you and I talk about all the time, but immigration law actually still applies in these places. And they're making the president of Princeton is a constitutional scholar. He's making that constitutional argument. Guess what, kids? You may not like it, but the rule of law matters, and this is not a sanctuary campus.
Well, I was sort of disappointed. I mean, the idea that a college is like a medieval church, and as long as you make it inside, you're safe. In case you ever want to rob a liquor store, you can always, you know what I mean? You know where to go. But it turns out that's not true. The law applies even there. Was it like that when you went there? Princeton?
You know, I'll have to say, when I was at Princeton, even in 2003, I feel like I ran the conservative publication. It was called the Princeton Tory, and we made it was right after 9/11, and so we made a lot of arguments that I think today, 10 years, many years later, we wouldn't be allowed to make. I mean, we had real free speech.
Wait, what is that? We're looking at a guy in some kind of athletic uniform. It looks like a basketball game. Who is that? You?
That's me, Tucker. Yes, that's a rare appearance on the floor. I'm usually on the bench, actually, during my 4 years playing at Princeton. But I did play. We made it to the NCAA tournament one time, and I got in and fouled somebody right away to make sure I'd make it in the books, for the record books.
So when you were at Princeton, were you also in ROTC?
I was in ROTC, yeah. So, although I would say that my basketball time was even harsher. I mean, the coaches there, it's old school, so they would say, guess what, Pete? The reason you're not playing is because you're not good. How about you make more shots? I mean, that's literally what they would say to me in the face. But I did ROTC as well, and was honored to do it. I was one of 3 in the mighty Tiger Battalion. So, and Princeton was one of the few schools that had ROTC. The rest of them had booted it out. So Princeton's, it's not conservative, but it's a little bit more traditional. And in that sense, things like ROTC have stuck around.
No, and it shows. You're not meeting a lot of 30-year-old guys who went to Yale who are like sort of normal. But Princeton, there are some. But only 3 in the entire school?
There's a few. Only 3 in my year in the entire school. And guess what? I wasn't even the battalion commander. I was number 2. I wasn't even the leader of the 3. So I was average then, but we did the best we could.
We've got a picture of you in your full rig. It doesn't really look like Princeton, though. Can you see the screen?
No. That one. So that photo is deceptive. That's Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, but it's the only one I had as a second lieutenant, which is what I was commissioned as at Princeton. And the old uniform. That's the old BDU uniform that we used to. We used to run cadence. We used to like running cadence around campus early in the morning, yelling crude Army cadences to the great offense of all my fellow Ivy League students at Princeton who didn't want to hear those bad words that early.
So and I'm sorry that I mistook Guantanamo Bay for Princeton. I mean, they're both kind of leafy and bucolic. Were you the last reasonable graduate, do you think?
We've had a few reasonable graduates since, but I think it was one of the last reasonable time periods where insanity hadn't fully taken over. Although Shapiro, who was the president before the one that took over, it's all just descending downhill, Tucker. I wish I had good news to share. It's something like the fact that we're celebrating the fact that it's just not a sanctuary campus, and that's a big win. It shows you how far it's gone. And listen, it's like Kellyanne Conway not being celebrated as the first woman to win a successful presidential race. Conservatives who are successful from Princeton are just sort of also-rans, right? You don't actually count. You got to be a progressive who believes in climate change in order to get lauded as being a graduate of any of these universities.
This whole education bubble is going to collapse at some point. I don't even know if I haven't even asked you this off air, but am I allowed to ask what your status is? Job status? Like,
what my status is?
There's been talk that you might go into the administration. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I met at the Tower and had a good meeting. And listen, I'm inclined towards service. I'm honored to be considered, but I don't get any weight or power in that decision. There's only one man that's going to make a call about who does what. But I've spent a lot of my life working for vets and the military. Would be passionate to have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about what Donald Trump is creating an opportunity to do, to rebuild the military and fix the VA, which has to happen. So we'll see what happens.
I have no weight either, but I can't think of any man better for the job than you. So I'm rooting for you.
Well,
Pete, it's great to see you tonight.
You're biased.
I am biased, very biased. See you, man.